Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. As you are aware, it's easy for the left and a favorite tactic of theirs to pick on the big evil oil companies. Well, it turns out these big evil oil companies like ExxonMobil and Chevron are paying more in taxes to the federal government than any other companies on the planet. In other words, it's ExxonMobil and it's Chevron that are making all of these redistributionist schemes that the left is fond of, making them possible. ExxonMobil last year, $31 billion in taxes. Chevron, $20 billion in taxes. So the reality is that rather than demonizing these oil companies, the left ought to be kissing the ground on which they walk. Now, here's that story about this $2.7 million federal study. Why do lesbians have higher risk for hazardous drinking? This is, again, a known health risk now, lesbianism, a higher risk for hazardous drinking. University of Illinois has been studying this issue since 2009, so they've known about this problem for some time. And this grant, $2.7 million, is designed to help them develop, quote, culturally sensitive strategies to prevent lesbians from being drunks. And the thing that occurred to me is if becoming a lesbian puts you at severe risk, elevated risk, higher risk of hazardous drinking, why don't we spend $2.7 million to develop culturally sensitive strategies to prevent women from becoming lesbians in the first place? Why don't we go right back to the source instead of waiting until the problem has manifested itself? Now, you know about Rob Bell. He is the former pastor that wrote a book called Love Wins. That's a book that says basically everybody gets to heaven, nobody goes to hell. Hell is an archaic concept that's outmoded. Nobody believes in a God that would send people to hell. And you know what is and of course Rob Bell is all about Christ and what a compassionate, wonderful guy he is, all of which of course is true. But what Rob Bell pretends not to notice, I mean, he knows better because he taught the scriptures for years as a pastor, is we know more about hell from Jesus than any other figure in the Bible. If it wasn't for the teaching of Jesus, we would not know that hell is a place of outer darkness and that it is a place of weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said that repeatedly. This is a place where there is weeping, there is wailing, and there is gnashing of teeth. It's a place of outer darkness. And in the parables where there is a Christ figure, Christ is the one that's sending people. Christ himself is the one that's sending these people to these places of outer darkness. The sheep and the goats parable, he's the one that's sending people off to eternal punishment. So it's just, it's just bizarre. I mean, you can't give the guy any credibility whatsoever when he just ignores such a major component of the teaching of the New Testament, and not just the teaching of the New Testament, but teaching that came from the lips of Christ himself. Well, now he's come out as an open supporter of marriage equality. He did this over the weekend at San Francisco's Grace Cathedral. He was asked a question about same-sex marriage. He said, I am for marriage. I am for fidelity. I am for love, whether it's a man and a woman and a woman, a man and a man. I think the ship has sailed, and I think the church I think this is the world we are living in, and we need to affirm people wherever they are. So basically he says, look, the ship has sailed. It's too late. We've lost the battle. We've lost the war. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to accept reality and adjust. And we just need to affirm people, no matter what their lifestyle choices are. if they're shooting up with drugs and destroying their lives, if they're getting swacked on the weekends and ruining their jobs and their careers and their families, we just need to affirm people wherever they are. And I just thought about, the fact again that the first words in Jesus' public ministry, he wasn't affirming anybody. I mean, the first thing that Jesus said, the very first word out of his mouth in his public ministry was repent and believe in the gospel. Now, Bell went on to say, it used to be fair to equate evangelicals with social conservatism. That assumption no longer holds true. He said, I think we are witnessing the death of a particular subculture that doesn't work, talking about evangelicals like you and me. We're dying. We're dead. It's a subculture. It doesn't work. Time to get rid of it, wad it up, and throw it away. I think there is a very narrow, politically intertwined, culturally ghettoized evangelical subculture that has turned away lots of people. It's dying. It is destructive. We've done all this in the name of God, and we need to repent. And so he goes on to say, look, here is the essence of the gospel, is to respond to this question: what do you do with the people that aren't like you? What do you do with the other? What do you do with the person that's hardest to love? Well, for him, who's that? Who's the person that's hardest for Rob Bell to love? Well, it's obviously committed evangelical Christians like you and me. He says, how do we love the people in the world that are least like us? Who is least like Rob Bell? Well, it's evangelical Christians. Now, you got to ask yourself the question, how's he doing loving people that are least like him? How's he doing? Well, it doesn't seem to me like he's doing all that great. He's calling us narrow. He's telling us that we've turned people off, that we're dying, that we're destructive, and that we need to repent. So maybe, just maybe, Rob Bell ought to start by taking a little bit of his own medicine. Now, there's a piece in the New Yorker by Jane Mayer. She's the one that did the profile on me last year for the New Yorker. She wrote it on Charles Murray, who has done a lot of great work in social research on the decline of the family. He's the one that's kind of highlighted the fact that marriage is still alive and well among college-educated women. The abortion rate is very low among college-educated women. The out-of-wedlock birth rate is very low among college-educated women. They have a high rate of marriage, and they have a high rate of successful marriages. Where marriage is in trouble is with middle income and lower income women. And he's done a great job of highlighting that. Well, he was supposed to talk at CPAC on some of this research. He bagged his whole speech and talked about what a supporter of gay marriage he is. Excuse me. And he used a similar analogy. 888-589-8840, by the way, number to call, 888-589-8840. If you want to join the program. He used an analogy similar to the one that Rob Bell used. Remember, Rob Bell used the analogy, the ship has sailed, it's gone, it's out of the harbor, it's headed to the high seas, we can't call it back, it's too late, we just got to accept reality. He says, I think the train has left the station on gay marriage. And again, he's just saying, look, we just got to roll over and we have to accept it. Well, if the train has left the station, Charles, then it's on the wrong track and it's heading for a collision with an oncoming freight train. Now, he's the guy that said, this is an amazing thing. He was talking about abortion. And people wound up walking out of his talk at CPAC. He said we shouldn't establish public policy against abortion. He said this was an issue that is better left for the most part to, quote, moral suasion rather than criminalization. Just try to talk people out of it. Now imagine that approach in World War II. Just try to talk the Germans out of gassing Jews. Just be nice to them. Try to use persuasion. Try to use reason. Try to be nice with them. See if you can appeal to their better angels. And let's see if that'll work. Let's not deal with any of this nonsense about trying to stop them. Let's not deal with any of this nonsense about using the force of arms to protect 6 million Jews. Let's not deal with any of that nonsense. Let's just use moral suasion. But listen to this. He says, rather than absolutely banning abortion, as many conservatives in the room clearly preferred, Murray quoted his friend Karl Hess, a Goldwater speechwriter turned charming anarchist, his words, on the idea, listen to this, that abortions should be thought of as homicides, with the caveat that it's a murder, it's a homicide, but sometimes homicide is justified. And Murray said he'd thought about this. This was a deliberate statement. He thought that Hess was too harsh with the language, but now he thought that his language was just right. So CPAC had an invited speaker that said that abortion is homicide, but it is a justifiable homicide. Now, one piece of good news on the abortion front, there's a piece of bad news. First of all, it's now coming to light that since 1971 in China, they have aborted 336 million babies. That is the entire population of the United States has been aborted by China since 1971. And one of the problems that they're running into in China is they're now running into a labor shortage. And they're starting to panic in China. They have got a major economic problem. They are running out of workers. Why? Because they've aborted 1/4 of their population. So they've got an aging population, and they don't have enough workers coming up to support them. Their fertility rate is 0.7 in some of the big cities, which is the lowest fertility rate in the world. Their labor pool shrank by 3.45 million people in 2012. So abortion is something eventually always catches up with you. If you abort your own people, you're aborting workers, you're aborting productive individuals, you are aborting entrepreneurs, you are aborting inventors, you are aborting moms and dads who are going to bring the next generation of citizens along. You eventually wind up paying a terrible, terrible price. And we'll take your phone calls some more when we come back, 888-589-8840. I want to give you a really great piece of good news in the abortion front, and I can frame it with this question. What if they gave an abortion and there was no doctor available to perform it? That day may not be as far off as you think. Back in 2.